Hello and welcome back, everyone. Now, the challenge fandom can be one that is very opinionated, and that's coming from a challenge obsessor who has pretty strong opinions about the show. At one point, I put up a community post asking for your challenge hot takes. I was very thrilled to see so many people leaving so many comments. Now, not saying all the comments left on that post were what I would consider a hot take, like this one that said that they wish that all the older seasons were available to stream in one place. I mean, it would be incredible to have seasons 1 through 39 on one singular platform. I think a lot of people would agree with you, and I don't necessarily think that is that much of a hot take. And the same with this one. They should bring back losers of the daily challenge automatically go into elimination. I think a lot of us as the fans have been saying this and beating the drum for this game mechanic to come back into the game, especially after watching the last few seasons of the challenge, at least the main series of the challenge. And then there were some takes like this one. Yeah, I'm not gonna touch that one. But there were some really interesting hot takes that I felt were reasonable enough as well as hot enough to dive deeper into the numbers and into these takes and to have a discussion. Let's start off with this hot take about Darrell. Darrell's reputation as one of the best is no longer because of the new seasons. Everything he's done was in the past, and he's been taking loss after loss versus current players. It's true that Darrell hasn't won a challenge season in a hot minute, but I think we get recency bias with certain players where a little dive into the details can help remind us all what Darrell has done on the show. Now let's get the obvious out of the way. Darrell is third all time in challenge championships at 4. Now, if we want to add spin-offs into the equation, yeah, he's still third all time. Darrell currently holds the record for the most wins in a row at 4, a record that most likely won't ever be broken except maybe by CT. Also sticking to the title talk, Darrell's 4 challenge championships were the most in challenge history for over 10 seasons until Johnny tied him when he won Battle of the X's season 22, but the record wasn't broken until season 25 Free Agents. And then CT didn't tie Darrell's 4 wins until season 36, and then he had to do one of the most impressive feats, and that was win back-to-back seasons to surpass him in season 37 with 5. Meaning, Darrell's win record wasn't broken until the best the game has to offer did it deep into their careers. And for anyone who wants to write into the comments, but Darrell won back in the day when it was team challenges and the games were easier. Yeah, but back then, Darrell was playing against people we named legends and icons of the challenge. And those players were in their prime, and Darrell was winning against them. And really, if anyone could have won back in the day because it was so easy, why didn't CT win back in the day? What about Ace, Shane, Anissa? And it's not like in recent seasons, Darrell wasn't close to winning. After returning from a long hiatus, Darrell was primed to win the Ruins if he didn't literally beat Brad. Darrell was 1 win away from making and most likely winning season 29, but after having to win against Johnny and Zach, CT was just too much for Darrell in the final minute. Let's not forget Darrell won in Champs vs. Pros against 2 challenge champs and actual pro athletes. We should remember Darrell won against now champion Devin in a puzzle elimination in Double Agents. Like that wasn't a win against a current player or anything. Darrell came in second in All-Stars 1, and a controversy surrounds All-Stars 2 where some ineptitude led to a second place finish. And his last 3 losses were against champs / really good players. Now there's another way to look at this question, right? If you're going to unseat Darrell, who are you going to put in his place? If you're looking at the top 5, normally you'll see a pattern of either Bananas or CT, one of those two in the 1 or 2 spot. I can see people after Jordan winning the world championship putting him around 3. But who's going to be 4, 5? By just the wording of this hot take, because Darrell has lost 2 current players, that means he can't be declared one of the best. Well, if you're thinking of putting Landon up there, he hasn't played since 2008. Derek hasn't won since 2009. Wes won on All-Stars 3, but was that against current players? I think it's unfair to Darrell and his contributions to the game because he continues to get calls and agrees to play a game that he loves, while a group of the fandom mystifies players from back in the day who may or may not have been successful in the modern era of the challenge. But because they stopped coming onto the show, the potential is held higher than what another challenge player has actually accomplished. So I disagree with this hot take. I think that Darrell should still be in conversations of being one of the best. Speaking of people mystifying older players, let's go to this hot take that says Kenny S might be the one who reached 7 titles of the show instead of Bananas if he didn't get banned. Kenny, on the show, had an impeccable social game. He also had a really good physique, so a lot of people would say that he could be the full package. As you can see, in his 8 seasons, Kenny went to 7 finals, winning 3 of them. And that's really impressive. But if we line up Kenny and Johnny's stats side by side, Kenny's 7 final appearances is pretty close to Johnny's 10. Fun fact, comparing each of their first 8 seasons, Bananas actually surpassed Kenny in challenge wins, winning his 4th on his 5th final appearance. And really looking into more of Kenny's wins and near wins, I feel we see a different picture than just what the numbers show. All of Kenny's wins came on team seasons. In Inferno 3, Kenny's team was stacked with Abram, Derek, and Evelyn, all players who would become multi-time champions. Then you have the island. How would we think that the team of Derek, Evelyn, Johnny, and Kenny would ever lose to Jen, Paula, Robin, and Ryan? And finally, in the ruins, JEK with Susie won against a team of 2 challengers, Kellyanne and Sarah. But what about his missed opportunities? Let's start off in season 15, the Gauntlet 3. This season had the rule about if anyone on the team DQs, then the whole team is disqualified, which is a bit of tough luck. Then in season 19, Fresh Me 2, Kenny was paired with Laurel. They won the most daily challenges, they won in exile, but couldn't get the job done against Carly and Landon. And in his final season, Rivals, he was paired up with Wes, a challenge champion. People want to say that CT paired with Wes in Rivals 2 was unfair. Kenny and Wes paired in Rivals 1 should have also been unfair and should have been an easy check in the bank. And before anyone says that Wes lost them that final with the cramp, here's my theory. If Wes hadn't overperformed and overextended himself throughout the season, trying to make up for Kenny's lack of ability in the daily challenges, he wouldn't have been as exhausted in the final. And maybe Kenny and Wes could have won. Either way, Fresh Me 2 and Rivals should have been wins in Kenny's resume, no matter how you slice it. But they weren't. And with the game changing from team-based to more paired/solo seasons, what from Kenny's resume makes us think he would have won more in the future. Now, I think Kenny could have went a similar route like Bananas, and he could have seen more finals if he would have been on more seasons. But even more final appearances, I don't think he would have ever beat Johnny Bananas in the win column. Here's my hot take. I think that Kenny is less like a Johnny Bananas and is actually like a more charismatic Derek. And that's not a diss to Derek or Kenny, but I think that their resumes line up a little bit more so than the resumes of Kenny and Johnny Bananas. So for this hot take, I disagree. If you enjoy the content that I create and would like to support the channel further than just watching the YouTube videos and subscribing to the channel and leaving comments, which is very, very important. Thank you so much. But if you would like to support the channel even further and support me as a content creator and get a ton of other exclusive content, please check out patreon.com/angelcakevids. If you would like to support the channel and myself, again, go check out patreon.com/angelcakevids. There's a link in the description. And if you have any questions about any of the tiers, please feel free to leave a comment down in the comment section below. All right, let's move on to this hot take that really made me think. Tori is one of the top women challengers of all time. 6 finals in 9 seasons, 1 win, a winning record in eliminations, finished every final except War of the Worlds 2 because of a purge. If Coral, Emily, and Laurel are considered GOATs with 1 win, then so is Tori. 2 things I want to acknowledge in this hot take before we dive into it. 6 finals in 9 seasons. I'm assuming USA 2 and World Championships are included in this tally. And we are counting War of the Worlds 2 Purge is not finishing a final. We also have to count USA 2's Purge as not finishing a final as well. Another thing is, if we are counting 2 spin-offs, we have to count all the spin-offs. I know USA 2 and the World Championships can be counted as more true to the MTV flagship than the Champs vs. series, but if we count one, we have to count them all to get a full picture. What's very interesting is when D-Money Ross says Emily as one of the top women challengers of all time, I think of Entertainment Weekly's top 50 challenge players, where in those rankings, Emily is the highest ranked woman at 5, Laurel is number 8, Tori is 24th, and Coral is 39th. I don't agree with all rankings on this list, but I think it's a good starting point in accumulating good players and comparing stats. So I grabbed every woman on this list and wrote down how many seasons each player did, final appearances both on MTV and the spin-offs, championships both MTV and spin-offs, daily wins, total dailies, elimination wins, total eliminations, get a percentage of how likely they'll make the final, as well as get a final win percentage, daily win percentage, and a lim win percentage. When we compare all of these stat lines to all of the women on the EU Top 50 Challenge Players list, we can see some interesting facts. First, taking a look at the averages, Tori has a slightly above average percent of making a final, slightly below average daily win percentage, and above average elimination win percentage, but where she takes a real hit is the final win percentage. Now I think that this is a little bit flawed since we are trying to figure out if Tori is among the GOATs, and even though all of these women are great players, let's put Tori's stats and compare them to other women champions. I put together a list of 30 women champions, Tori Deal among them, and not too much changes. Her stats compared to the new averages are a little bit worse. More specifically, her daily win percentage and her final win percentage. Now let's focus on the players that were mentioned in this hot take: Tori, Emily, Coral, and Laurel. When taking a look at their percentage of making a final, Emily has an impeccable 100%. Coral has a solid 66.67%, and Laurel and Tori's percentages is pretty close to the average. All players have a great elimination win percentage. Tori has the lowest, but still really good percentage. Daily win percentage isn't too disparaging of a gap between the players, but Tori has the lowest and the only person under the average. And none of the players have a particularly good final win percentage. All are well below the average, but Tori's still worst among all the women champs. I will say, when it comes to the challenge game, Tori has shown to have taken big steps to become a good player, and the biggest advantage Tori has on her side is time. I think there are still some women champions and multi-challenge champions that get overlooked because of the time they played, or they weren't the biggest personalities that I feel could be higher up on the list. But Tori's full story hasn't been written yet, and who knows what will happen in the next few seasons. But I think we should wait a little bit before we just hand over the title of one of the top challenge competitors of all time. Now, all the research that I just did for that last hot take fit perfectly for this next hot take. Cam is the best female to have never won. For this, let's go back to the Entertainment Weekly's top 50 players, where Cam is the highest non-champ woman on said list, right behind Leroy, who is the highest ranked non-winner player at 32. Let's grab all the non-women champs from this list. Now it's only 8, so I have to use somewhat of my own imagination and create my own list of some of the top women competitors who have never won the challenge. So I made a list that comprised of 32 competitors and their stats similarly to referencing Tori's stats in the previous section. Looking at the averages, Cam had an above average stats in every category. Now coming into this hot take and compiling all these stats, there were 3 names that I was interested to see how they stacked up next to Cam's stats. And that was Nani, Anissa, and Jen. Anissa was quickly scratched off this list. Although she played for a lot more years, her stats and averages are just not up to par. Nani has ran more finals than Cam, but her percentages are a bit lower, and her elimination record isn't the best. Jen comes the closest to Cam's numbers. They've done the same amount of seasons. Jen ran 1 more final than Cam, lower daily win percentage, and just above average in elimination win percentage, but still slightly lower than Cam's. Jen probably had one of the best social games, but when I think of Cam, she has the social game, strategy, physicality. I think Jen was a specialist in certain areas of the game, But Cam is a much better overall competitor. And out of the four of Anissa, Nani, Jen, and Cam, I felt Cam had a better opportunity to win, or has a better opportunity to win if she would ever return to the show. So for this hot take, I completely agree with it. I think Chris had a top 5 season of all time in USA 2. I think it is up there with the best seasons by an individual we have seen. Now this is an interesting hot take. There's no doubt Chris had a fantastic season. I mean, he won. But was his USA 2 season a top 5 season performance over the history of the challenge? First, let's check out Chris's USA 2 stats. He won 5 daily challenges. His daily win percentage was 38.46. He has 4 elimination wins, and he won the season as a rookie. We could use some more context like the rest of the cast Chris was playing against, 9 players making their debut on the season, 4 players on their second season, 8 finalists, and 4 champions. This I feel shows this was a cast of varied experience, but nothing too far off from what we would see from a normal challenge season nowadays. Now, to consider this a top 5 season of all time, we have to look at the most statistically impressive season performances. So I went through all of the challenge seasons, picked the player or players with the best stats from each season for comparison. Now, grading these season performances can be a bit difficult, with all these seasons having different formats from each other, as well as some can have format changes within its own season, like USA 2. It started out as a 3-team, and then it went down to individual. I think we should only focus on the champions on this list, as that makes the most sense when comparing a champ and another champ. Out of the champions, Chris's 38.46 daily win percentage is better than 18 other players. With his 5 daily wins, he has won the 9th most dailies compared to this champs list. What I found very interesting through this research is that only 3 times in all of challenge history has someone faced 4 or more eliminations and then went on to win the season. Of course, you have Sarah Grayson, who won 5 on the gauntlet and then went on to win the season with her Road Rules team. And then you have Laurel in Free Agents, who went into 4 eliminations and then won the season. Now, the thing is that determining the top season performances can be subjective. Some would say not seeing an elimination all season is playing a strong game. What we should also take into account when looking at Chris and wondering if this is a top 5 season performance is that he was the only rookie man in the final. And he was facing off against a 7-time winner and a multi-time finalist in Fessel and Tori. Easily one of the toughest levels of competition in a final any rookie had ever had to face off against, let alone win in such a dominating fashion. If we tried to compare the stats of the finalists in USA 2 against any of the finalists the rest of these champs faced in the final, I'm sorry, but it wouldn't even be close. Like if you take Laurel's stats from Free Agents, they look very similar to Chris's stats in USA 2, but their final performances were drastically different. Laurel faced off against Devin and Nani, who aren't bad competition, but again, nowhere near the level of competition when compared to Fessel, Corey, and Johnny. And in Free Agents, Laurel only won by like 9 minutes over Nani. Granted, Chris never had to deal with Zach getting a cramp. I feel Turbo is close to Chris final-wise, with them both being rookies. Turbo did face off against 3 challenge champions with Cara, Hunter, and Wes, and really the only challenge champ Chris had to worry about was Johnny Bananas, though Johnny had more wins than Cara, Hunter, and Wes combined at the time. So taking all of that into account, I think Chris had a top 5 season in USA 2. Chris always had his feet to the fire. The format change could have easily messed up his game, yet he never wavered. Whenever he went to elimination, he took care of business against whoever it was, and 2 of his 5 challenge wins came at the end of the game, which was pivotal for him making the final, which he dominated against all odds. Alright, now it's time for the final hot take, and this one actually came from one of my review and recasts from the Challenge 39. This is the worst group of finalists in the history of the challenge. Now, right off the bat, after watching this season and then looking at this comment, I think a lot of us would agree, but I thought it would be interesting enough to actually dive into the numbers to see if this was indeed one of the worst group of finalists ever. When taking a look at the 7 finalists for the Challenge 39, yeah, their numbers don't scream exciting. Even though the whole theme is looking for a new champion, none of the finalists had ever ran a final, When getting the average of the daily win percentage of the 7 finalists, it came out to 25.27. If we're going to compare this final with any other MTV season final, we need to be strategic in that we can't look at any final that has any challenge champions running them. If there is a challenge champion present, the numbers can get thrown off. To find the most recent The Challenge final with no previous champions involved, we have to go back to Season 27 Battle of the Bloodlines. Most of the competition in Season 27's final were in their rookie season, Jenna was in her second season, and Bloodlines was Kara's 8th season. The daily win percentage is much higher than 39's at 40%. Everyone but Corey had been in an elimination, and Cara Maria had made it to 3 finals prior to Season 27. Clearly, Battle of the Bloodlines finalists had more impressive stats than Season 39's finalists. Luckily, you don't have to go too far to find the next final that didn't have any champs in them, which was Season 26 Battle of the Exes 2. Although none of the players won a season, just scanning the stats of everyone, we can clearly see this final had a lot of great players. Their average daily win percentage is worse than the Challenge 39 daily win percentage, but everyone but Jay and Jenna had been in elimination. Sarah had been to 3 finals prior to Season 26, while Leroy and Jordan had each been to 1. I would say that these players had shown promise in their seasons prior and had also made a mark on Season 26 to make their present memorable. Really, the final season in the modern era of the challenge whose final had no champions present was Season 23 Battle of the Seasons 2012. And let's just say these stats look very familiar. The average daily win percentage is really similar to the Challenge 39 daily win percentage. Also, the average season of the finalists is close to that of Season 39's as well. No one had been to a final except for, Sarah, who had been to 2 prior to Season 23, and everyone had seen an elimination on the season, unlike Season 39. I think Battle of the Seasons is the closest stats-wise to the Challenge 39 finalists out of the seasons we've looked at. The thing is, Battle of the Seasons finalists showed drama, flair, strategy, and performance over the course of the season. The Challenge 39 finalists are rather underwhelming, and I'd say one of the most underachieving in the main series of the show, in my opinion. So yes, I agree with this hot take. Now I know I only got to 6 hot takes from the hundreds of comments left on my community post. This video took a long time to research and put everything together. If you enjoyed this video, maybe we can make it a series. Let me know down in the comment section below. What do you think about these hot takes? Which hot takes do you agree with? Do you agree with these hot takes? Do you agree with my hot takes on these hot takes? Now I want to give a special shout out thank you to everyone who supports me over at patreon.com/angelcakevids. Thank you for your support. Thank you for your generosity. Thank you. And thank you to everyone who's watching this video up to this point. I'll be back really soon with more challenge content, more content in general. But until then, peace.